Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Wednesday, January the 17th, 2024. So I did this experiment where I put out 13 videos in a day. I put out a main video and then I put out a video for each star sign. And I was looking at the viewing figures and it didn't look very good. It seems that I was getting drops across the board and this experiment maybe wasn't working. Now, I wasn't sure whether or not to go back to the old system to just have everything in one video, or whether I should keep going for a little bit with my 13 videos. So what did I do? Well, I consulted the I Ching. I mean, I Ching is not just a theory. It's something I do use in my life. So what did the I Ching think? So I got a hexagram, the creative. I got hexagram number 1. Well, that sounds good. Unfortunately, the bottom line moved, and that bottom line moving was really telling me that I was just putting too much effort into it, and that it was too early to be putting out 13 videos, yeah, it really wasn't worth it. I think the I Ching was pretty clear about this, and so that made up my mind. So I'm going to go back to the old system of just having a single video. It's going to be a long video. I'm assuming this video is going to be a couple of hours long, but you just have to remember that within this video I do cover all of the 12 signs. I cover them in as much detail as if I had 12 separate videos. It's just a format that is more compact. I mean, logically, it would seem to make more sense to have 13 videos. But my viewing figures suggested otherwise, and I Ching was not happy about it at all. So I am going back to my original format. That's the first point. Second point is my topic for today. Well, over the weekend, next weekend, Pluto goes into Aquarius, and I think I'm going to talk about Pluto. I considered having a separate video on Pluto, but no, I don't think so. I don't think I need to have a separate video. So I'm going to talk about Pluto. Pluto in Aquarius, what I think it means, and I'm going to try to link it with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at the end of, which happened a couple of years ago. A few years ago, end of 2020 was when it happened. And, you know, people think, oh yeah, that's happened, it's done. Maybe someone's put up a video about the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, time to move on. Well, not really. Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions don't just sort of hang around for a couple of days. They actually hang around for about 20 years. So I'm going to look at the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which took place a few years ago, and I'm going to compare it with Pluto's movement into Aquarius, which is really pretty imminent. So that is my topic. I'm going to be kind of going all over the place. I warn you. I do want to look at some history. I want to look at the Tudors. I want to look at Roosevelt, FDR. You know, when he became president. I want to look at the marriage of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. So yeah, a few things I want to look at, because I want to relate it to Pluto moving into Aquarius and this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which took place at the end of 2020. But before I do that, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Wednesday, January the 17th, 2024. So here we go. Top right, that is not the moon. That planet is not the moon. It's actually Pluto. It looks like the moon, but no, it is actually Pluto. And that's a reminder that in this video I do want to talk about it. Pluto is important. So what is actually going on today astrologically? You know what? Not a great deal. It's not. It's not a. It's not a particularly exciting day in terms of the volume of stuff going on. You can see the moon is in Aquarius. Sorry, moon is actually in Aries. Sorry, moon is in Aries. It's conjunct the North Node. So with the moon in Aries, it's about assertion. It's about starting things, telling people how we feel. Yeah, it's a very definite placement for the moon. And it's conjunct the North Node. The North Node is about where we should be going, what is the right behavior. And it's saying that the right behavior is actually to be assertive. I mean, it's okay to be assertive. It's the right thing to do. Now, that doesn't mean to say we have to be aggressive. That doesn't mean to say we have to be obnoxious. It's just that if we think something's wrong, it's okay to tell everyone. If we want to push forward with our agenda, that's fine. We can be assertive. It's the right thing to do. And by contrast, the wrong thing to do, South Node opposition to Moon, is to try too hard to fit in with other people's ideas and plans, to be passive, to not want to rock the boat. That is the South Node. That is the line of least resistance, but it's not the right approach. We have to be very definite today. Now, as far as other things are going on, Venus is here, and Saturn is here, and Venus and Saturn are about 72 degrees apart. So 72 degrees, that is 1/5 of a circle. So going back to the cake analogy, imagine you've got a cake, round cake, you cut it into 5 equal parts. Each of those parts is going to be 72 degrees, and so that's the quintile. And quintiles are about style. So with Venus quintile Saturn, people are going to kind of want to give the impression of being a bit aloof, that they don't really care about each other. People are not going to want to admit that they've got ordinary human feelings. They're going to want to kind of show the world that they're a bit cold, and that they can look after themselves. And so be aware of that. We might also see a bit of meanness, and by meanness I mean meanness in a sort of a literal sense, mean as in not wanting to spend money. Venus quintile Saturn, some people may be feeling a great need to show that they can look after their finances, that they can be tough with money, that they don't want to spend it. So that is something to watch out for. I'm not saying it's good or bad, it's just the way it is. Also, the planet Mercury is making a sesquiquadrate aspect to Uranus. So there's Mercury in Capricorn making a sesquiquadrate aspect to Uranus. Some of us are just going to feel that there's something that needs to be said, and we don't really care too much about what happens when we've said our piece. Said our piece, I'm not sure if that's really the right word, because by saying the wrong thing, we can cause a lot of aggravation. And with Mercury Uranus is full of sparks. Mercury Uranus sesquiquadrate knows exactly what to say to cause maximum upset. So do be careful what you say, and don't rise to the bait. So if you hear someone saying something really upsetting, your immediate response might be to get angry, shouting, screaming, whatever. That's not the right approach. I think it may be that some people are just trying to get attention. So don't yeah, do not rise to the bait. However outrageous someone is, just relax. So I think that is the best way of dealing with this Mercury sesquiquadrate Uranus. Also, Mercury does represent one's thoughts. And so with Mercury sesquiquadrate Uranus, we might have sudden thoughts. And these thoughts change everything, kind of really revolutionary thoughts, and we immediately will start seeing the world in a different way. It could be stressful, but if we see it through, I think we could really get some excellent results for ourselves. Because originality today, with Mercury sesquiquadrate Uranus, originality is a virtue. Another thing going on is that the planet Venus, there's Venus, 23 Sagittarius, is conjunct a fixed star, the fixed star Ras Al Hag. I believe that what Ras Al Hag means is head of the snake charmer, because it's in the constellation of Ophiuchus. Ophiuchus is the snake charmer. Remember, it's Ophiuchus. You always, every few years, you get articles in the tabloid press saying, "Oh, astrologers got it all wrong. There are actually 13 signs," forgetting that Western astrology is based on the seasons. It's not actually based on the positions of the stars. But Ophiuchus is often mentioned, with the 13th, as the 13th sign, and as far as I'm concerned, that's just nonsense. Simply because Western astrology is a seasonal system. Nonetheless, Venus is on the head of the snake charmer. So what does that mean? Okay, so let's look at what Vivian Robson has to say in his Fixed Stars and Constellations in Astrology. So he talks about Ras Al Hag. He says, a sapphire star situated on the head of Ophiuchus from Ras Al Hawa, which would be Arabic, the head of the serpent charmer. So the influence, according to Ptolemy, it is of the nature of Saturn and Venus, and to Alvidus of Jupiter and Mercury in sextile to Mars. It gives misfortune through women, perverted tastes, and mental depravity. God, I hadn't realised it was so extreme. So that is something to watch out for. And when it says for Venus conjunct Ras Al Hag, quick mind, well-educated, cautious, secretive, suspicious, unfavourable for gain, strange tastes and mental depravity. I suppose we have to be careful who we hang out with. We don't want to hang out with people who have strange tastes and are mentally depraved, as Vivian Robson puts it. Though maybe in some respects it's talking about us. To what extent do we have strange tastes? And to what extent are we mentally depraved? I mean, no one knows what goes on through in people's minds. All sorts of weird stuff goes on in people's minds, and we don't talk about it. But there is strange stuff going on, and Venus conjunct Ras Al Hag, we might start to get in touch with our own weirdness, our own depravity, and as well as other people's weirdness and depravity. So we do need to resist the temptation to get involved with something which really is beneath us. It's something we should have grown out of. But if we mix with the wrong people, there could be bad results with that Venus conjunct Ras Al Hag. Having said all that, I'm not convinced that Ras Al Hag is a particularly major influence. And so for most of us, I think we can sort of ignore the fact that Venus is placed on this star. Okay, so having looked at the astrology for today in a general sense, I want to look at the astrology for the 12 signs. Normally over the last couple of days, I've been doing separate videos for the 12 signs, and I'm now just going to put it all in one. I really must remind you, I have created chapters in this video. This should allow you to just look at your own sign, and you don't have to look at everything else I'm saying about the other 11 signs. So make use of the chapters that I provide in the description to this video, because just listening to me going through all 12 signs, wow, I can't think of anything worse. Well, I suppose I can, but that would probably be pretty boring, just listening to me for potentially quite a long time. So just focus on your sign and use the chapter system in order to do that. Okay, so let's go. Here are my forecasts for the 12 signs on Wednesday, January the 17th, 2024. Aries. The moon continues moving through your star sign. So you do continue to be in quite a good position. You are assertive. You want things done your way. And I think that this assertion that you are expressing today is absolutely appropriate. This is because the moon is conjunct the south node. The south node represents where you should be going. Perhaps from a karmic sense, the destiny of your soul, what you're supposed to be doing in this incarnation. And now, with the moon conjunct with the north node, you're starting to really feel it. You have been born in Aries, and the moon is in Aries, and you need to tell the world what you want, and you shouldn't be too afraid of articulating your displeasure, especially if you see an injustice. There are injustices around you, Aries, maybe little and small injustices. Someone, just not treating someone with respect. We might not necessarily be talking about, for example, full-scale human rights violations, but, just disrespect, people ignoring other people's needs. And, you're aware of all this. And I think, if necessary, you're able to step in and to remind people what is correct behavior, because I think you do have a strong sense of that today. Elsewhere, Aries, in terms of relationships, I think you're pretty sensitive to the needs of the people close to you. I understand that there are things you want to do, and you perhaps are a bit selfish today, but I think you're going to feel that you do have to make room for a couple of other people, and I think you can really do that. And I think at the same time you can really make people feel good about themselves. You can because you just know how to relate today, but it's relating in a very active way. It's nothing very passive. You're just saying, you're out there. You're saying, you are here. You can relate to the world. You know what people want, and you're very definite about what you can do for people. And so overall, I think that is pretty fortunate. As far as how partners are feeling. I mentioned at the beginning of this video when I was talking about what's going on today astrologically, that Venus is quintile Saturn. Now, Venus rules your seventh house cusp, or rather your seventh house. So Venus is saying something about partners and those you have close interactions with. So if Venus is quintile Saturn, you might find that the people who are important to you may be making a special effort to be like cold and disinterested and very focused on material details, not really interested in emotional stuff, making a special effort to be detached. Now, you might feel a bit upset about that, but you should remember that Venus quintile Saturn. A quintile is a constructed aspect. It's not the real person. It's someone trying to give an impression for a short period of time. And, it can be very difficult to maintain that impression. So if you see people making a special effort to be cold and disinterested, don't take it too seriously. Just let the thing run. And I think you'll find that sooner or later people will calm down and start being more personable. Okay, Aries, that's it. I think you get the picture. It should be a good day when, by taking the initiative, you can actually be doing what is right for you. Taurus. It's another day when you're not entirely in the mood for being, with other people, for having an active social life. I think you're going to want to, take a step back, and this is especially the case with Venus, your ruling planet, being quintile Saturn. You really don't want to give the impression that you need other people. You want to give the impression that you are self-reliant, that you can function as a lone operator. Okay, that's the way it is. I'm not saying it's bad, but maybe you need to consider some of the people around you, people you're close to, perhaps partners. They might overinterpret the impression you're giving. So if you try hard to be cool and aloof, you may find that other people are really trying to interpret that, and they might draw the wrong conclusions. They might take the view that you really are a cold fish, that you are not interested in relating, that you're just wrapped up in yourself, and that's not the impression you're really trying to give. So do consider the impression you're giving to the people around you, and Taurus, don't be too stubborn, and if you get a bit of criticism, don't take it to heart. Gemini. Well, Gemini, it's a day when, yes, you have some people to deal with, maybe friends, acquaintances. People are trying hard to get on with each other, but you kind of know that the party is over. There might be a little more excitement, but dealing with other people and trying to maintain your interest could be hard work. As I said, you just know that something has changed, and while you're at it, you may feel a certain sense of frustration. You can feel that you've got a lot of power at your disposal. You're really sure you have got power at your disposal, that you can sort of make things happen, that you can forge equipment which can be used to move forward and be assertive. I'm saying that because, Mercury is aspecting the Saturn Vulcanus midpoint. Now, you don't perhaps have to worry too much about it, but we should remember that Vulcanus is like a blacksmith. He's Vulcan, and he's the sort of god of volcanoes, and Saturn is about restriction. And I think that you really want to get your energy out. You want to be able to forge new weapons. I'd say that metaphorically. Tools for dealing with society, tools for dealing with the world around you. And, with Mercury aspecting the Saturn Vulcanus midpoint, you may feel that you just can't create the tools you need to be truly successful. And there may be a lot of frustration there. So, Gemini, consider what your ambitions are and consider what you want. What are the things you want? And how can you actually achieve it? You probably don't have all the equipment. You need a certain minimum of equipment to be successful. You just haven't got it all. And by equipment, I'm not just talking about physical things like a screwdriver, for example, or a hammer. I'm thinking about your reactions and your attitudes. Somehow your attitudes to the world around you are just a little bit primitive, and you do need to work on them. So really bear that in mind. And also, Gemini, don't get too preoccupied with decay and death. Some Geminis might have convinced themselves that really nothing is going to go right, but it's all downhill from here, it's all spiraling into nothing. That's not true, but I can understand that you might think it is the case. So, Gemini, don't dwell on that negativity, and try to look around you and try to find something positive. There are positive things out there, and today you can definitely take advantage of them. Cancer. It's another day when you can be successful. You can really establish who you are, because your personality is going to be very obvious. The power of your personality and your charisma is really going to be just out there. Everyone can see it, can experience it. So it would be a good time to focus on your career. Indeed, it's a direction that you're really supposed to be going in. And if you are working today, you might find that the social environment is a lot easier than it was yesterday. I think yesterday there was resistance. People were trying at some level to frustrate your progress. They weren't making it easy for you. Well, now I think this problem is dissipating. And I think if you go out into the world and you mix with people, you can be very successful, and you can get people to really start to admire you, even rely on you. So Cancer, I think that's pretty much it. You just have to be assertive, and you shouldn't be afraid of your working environment, business, career. This is a place where you can really establish yourself, and you can really impress the people who matter. Okay, Cancer, that's it. play it right, and it should be a great day. Leo, you would like to be in an environment which was expansive, which allowed you to make the absolute most of your opportunity, make the most of the opportunities around you, to reach out into sort of new areas. You'd really like all of that, but it may be a bit difficult because some of the people around you may not be very helpful. This was a problem that was around yesterday, and it's persisting into today. I don't think you should take it too seriously. Yes, I think there are going to be people who are going to make sort of nitpicking little criticisms that really amount to nothing, but nonetheless you still feel that you have to take them seriously, and you might just get annoyed if you get criticized. But maybe you're used to the situation. There could have been some criticism yesterday, and I assume you were able to take it in your stride, and it's the same today. Yes, there's someone you have to deal with, and this person may, at least in the first instance, not be very constructive. But I really do think that you can handle the situation. So don't get too upset if people, try to bother you, criticize you. It's not important, and you can believe whatever you choose to believe. And certainly, one person you shouldn't believe is someone who is undermining your confidence. But that's it for today. I think it can be a useful day, but you just don't want to get stuck in one place, particularly if you're stuck in one place with people who don't fully recognize and respect your many talents. Virgo, you're still feeling a bit sensitive. You understand that the world is a heavy place that requires a fair amount of understanding, not to mention work, and you're not going to trivialize things. And I think that is very good. I think that you're able to take seriously the work in front of you, and you won't allow yourself to be distracted. And it may be a time when, Virgo, you have to confront a difficult issue. It's a difficult issue that you've known about for some time, but you've sort of shied away from it. You haven't wanted an argument. You haven't wanted to rock the boat. Well, today, with the moon in Aries, conjunct the North Node, I think you start to realize that it might be now or never. There's something you need to say, some subject that you need to bring up. So work out what it is, and then work out how best to approach some other person who is relevant to this subject. Perhaps it's someone you've recently fallen out with, or had an argument with, or a misunderstanding, and you've just you've swept the whole thing under the carpet. Well, it's not a time for sweeping things under the carpet. It's a day for it's a day for being sincere, direct, and most importantly, honest. Libra, relationships can't be avoided. After all, the moon is in your opposite sign of Aries. and the moon is conjunct the south node, conjunct the north node, um, and this is really telling you about where you should be going. It's not a time to be thinking just about yourself and your own private business and your own concerns. No, that's not healthy. You need to be thinking about other people. Like yesterday, I said the same thing yesterday. You just have to be, you have to be, very aware of the people, aware of the people around you, and aware of the things that they need. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you have to completely do things their way. You just have to acknowledge. You have to acknowledge people's existence. You have to acknowledge people's concerns, and just make some effort to, make it clear that you understand that. And while this is going on, you're not going to want to try too hard to demonstrate, for example, your affection. This is because Venus, your ruling planet, is 72 degrees apart from the planet Saturn, and so 72 degrees, that's 1/5 of the circle. This is about a particular style that you as a Libran are trying to adopt, and this style is a bit cold and aloof, and it can be useful to be cold and aloof, but if you persist with it for too long, it can cause problems. I mean, in extreme situations, people might just decide they don't like you because you're just so difficult and you're detached. So you have to sort of snap out of that. This is not a day for being completely detached. And also, I should say that there is something about you that's quite excitable. You see interesting things and you kind of want to get involved. You don't want to just be an observer. Yeah, you want to be really in the middle. You almost might find yourself heading for trouble. So if you see some trouble, you might almost want to go into the trouble. I don't think that's a good strategy. You need to look at other ways of harnessing your social abilities, and maybe today you have a chance to perhaps meet people, meet people for a drink or whatever, and once that happens, once you've got a little bit of a social thing going, you can really start to express yourself, and it will be clear about. It will be quite clear how exciting you are. But always just remember that there are other people that need to be considered, and you need to give them plenty of space in which to express themselves. Okay, next sign is Scorpio. It's a day when your immediate impulse is to organize things. You don't want chaos. You don't want things to be a mess. You respond very badly when things are a mess. So when you look around you, when you see things that are all over the place, when you see disintegration, you just want to fix it. You want to sort it out. And I think that is good, provided you don't go too far. You've perhaps got to understand your own limitations. You can't entirely sort out other people's problems. You can't sort out other people's mess. But within reason, you can create an oasis of tidiness and order. It won't take as long as you'd feared, but still, it's not a trivial task. It's all about focusing on something and just you keep going until you have created the requisite level of order. And in terms of the way you deal with other people, I think you're going to be quite effective. I think you'll know how to organize people, and you'll know how to make people feel as though they as though they belong. You can create a sense of belonging, and you're helped by your sensitivity. I mean, Scorpio has got a reputation for being a sensitive sign, and you understand what people want, and you can really create that belonging, and I think that is very useful. But you really just must be careful. Whatever's happening today, it happens in an orderly manner. One thing should logically lead on to another thing. You don't want to get involved in things in a haphazard way, doing one thing, doing another thing, getting things in the wrong order. That would be a recipe for disaster. But I think if you understand what's required of you, if you understand the need for self-discipline, then I think at the very least it can be a very productive day. Sagittarius. Well, Sagittarius, you continue to be fairly creative. You can make things happen. You can be, if you want, a sort of a tower of charisma. The sparks are flying. You are the person that can make things happen. So if there's a sort of a boring situation, nothing seems to be going on, and Sagittarius walks into the room, anything is possible. And so that kind of gives you a bit of a responsibility, because if people are bored and disinterested, you might feel, well, it's your responsibility to stir things up, make things happen again. So you have to work out how much you're going to give of your time and your effort, your time and your effort and your enthusiasm, because you can't give everything. I mean, you have to look after your own needs. I think I sort of mentioned this yesterday. You're really in need of grounding and security, and you will probably function best when you're in your own home, and you need to accept that. So don't go somewhere just because you might think it might make someone happy. Don't feel pressurized. You have to sort out your own grounding, and I think that is definitely something you can achieve. And once you're feeling grounded, you're in a better position to relate to the outside world. Remembering that the moon, which is currently in Aries, is starting to make a 120-degree trine aspect to Venus, and this aspect is very fortunate, particularly as Venus is in your star sign. So Venus is in your star sign. You've got the moon moving through a sector of your solar chart, very much connected with creativity. And Sagittarius, I think you can make things happen, and you can bring people in. You can create an exciting situation, and people will just naturally gravitate to it. And yeah, you can almost be the center of the universe, if that's what you want. Not just today, but perhaps for parts of tomorrow as well. Okay, Sagittarius, that's it. That's all I'm going to say. It doesn't look too bad, provided you handle things in the right way. Capricorn, you are feeling a little bit unsure of yourself. You you're kind of wondering, whether or not you should be pulling out all the stops. I remember there's a lot of stuff going on in your star sign. There's Mercury, Mars, Sun, and Pluto, as I said yesterday, moving through your star sign. So, yeah, in theory, you are in a great position. But at the same time, you're feeling just uncomfortable, especially when you are away from your sacred earth. I suppose by sacred earth, I'm thinking about, there's those sort of vampire movies when, you've got the coffin with earth from Transylvania, and you've got to get close to that earth every night. You've got to return to that sacred earth. I don't know why I'm being morbid and using a horror film analogy, but that's just what came to me. So yeah, you've got to be close to that sacred earth, because if you drift away from what feels comfortable if you drift away too much, you're going to lose your power. So make sure that you're always close to somewhere secure, just in case, you feel uncomfortable, just in case things don't go your way. So Capricorn, main thing is to look after yourself. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you're not in a powerful position, because actually you are in a powerful position, because Saturn, which is your ruling planet, is aspecting the Mercury-Jupiter and the Mars-Pluto midpoints. So Mercury-Jupiter as a pair is about optimistic communication and optimistic thoughts as well. So as your ruler is on the Mercury-Jupiter midpoint, you're capable of really lighting things up with your fundamental optimism. And then you move to the Mars-Pluto. Mars-Pluto is slightly different. That's all about power. So Saturn hitting the Mars-Pluto midpoint is about you, Capricorn, having a powerful impact on the world around you. So you can be optimistic. You can say inspiring things, but at the same time, you can be in control. And you should never forget that. So, sure, there might be times when you feel out of your element, too far from the sacred earth. But once you're on familiar territory, then you're really gonna be able to tune into your power, because that power that you're able to manifest is very real. Aquarius. Aquarius, you are probably in a relatively good position. After all, the moon is moving through a sector of your solar chart connected with communication, and it is trine Venus. So Venus is the planet of relationships, and so that means that you're going to be able to communicate very well, and I think that other people are going to like you. So today you might be quite popular, provided you want to be popular. I mean, I do understand that there is a temptation to sort of go back to Aquarian type. That is because Venus is making a quintile aspect to Saturn. So Saturn is your ruling planet. Saturn rules Aquarius. So Venus quintile Saturn might mean, Aquarius, that you want to make a special effort to be detached and disinterested. Now, detachment and disinterested and detachment and disinterest can be Aquarian traits. And so perhaps you're going to want to be a typical Aquarius, and if you like, a stereotypical Aquarius. But really, is it necessary to adopt such a style? I don't think you have to. I think it would be better if you made an effort to be welcoming, and to be pleasant, and to be optimistic. Especially as Saturn, your ruling planet, is on the Mercury-Jupiter midpoint. As you know, if you were listening to what I was saying to Capricorn, I was talking about Saturn on the Mercury-Pluto midpoint. Saturn on the Mercury-Jupiter midpoint. That is about enthusiasm and being optimistic, and being able to converse in a very pleasant way, a way that other people like listening to, and also in a way that makes people feel good about themselves. And I think by doing that, I think you will be using your talents in the best possible way. Pisces. Well, Pisces, it's not a bad day, but the moon is still in Aries. And because the moon is still in Aries, that does mean that, like yesterday, there is a certain emphasis on money. Money can't quite be avoided. You feel there are things you need to do to stabilize your financial situation. Now, are you actually going to do them? Well, I suppose Pisceans often get criticized for being a bit chaotic. And so perhaps in the chaos you might sort of forget what you need to do. But there's definitely something you need to do in a financial sense. Indeed, from the point of view of what you're supposed to be doing, what, if you like, the universe expects you to be doing right now. The universe expects you to be keeping things simple, being down to earth, and to really look at the things that matter, with particular reference to money, to just focus on simple personal finance. Just focus on it, and see what you can achieve, see what you can discover, but don't make it complicated. Just keep it simple. And by doing that, I'm fairly confident that you will be doing the right thing. So another thing to point out is that the moon is making a trine to Venus. And so the moon, moving through Aries, Aries is a sign in the Piscean horoscope but has a special connection with money, is making a trine to Venus. Venus is a money planet. It can be a money planet. It's not, okay, it can relate to love and relationships and things like that, but Venus can be about money. And so with moon trine Venus, I think that you can put yourself in a very good position. I think your understanding of money will be very good. And if you tell people what's on your mind about money, I think they'll be impressed, especially in a working environment. So if you're at work and there are financial issues come up, you'll be able to say some things which are very useful. And perhaps you just have a natural intuition for what's going on. This is sort of a weird thing about Pisces, because you think about Pisces as being a chaotic sign, but Pisceans can actually make very good accountants. You might ask, how can a Pisces be a good accountant? Well, reason being is that Pisceans have an intuition for what's going on. So they can look at a spreadsheet or company accounts and just look at it. They won't have to read everything, every single line, but they'll just get a feel for what's going on, and they'll get a feel for what needs to be looked at. And by doing that, you can come over as being very impressive. And I suppose that's particularly the case if your work has anything to do with finance and accounting. So look out for an opportunity in that direction. Okay, that's my forecast for the 12 signs, and what I want to do now is look at the I Ching. So, as always, I ask the question, what is Wednesday going to be like for people watching this channel, or at least this section, for people watching this video, and specifically for this section of this video. So I threw the coins, and the first hexagram I got was hexagram number 18, illness. We've had this before. It's nothing to worry about. There is a suggestion here that something isn't quite right. Illness, as I was saying a few days ago when it came up before, in the Wilhelm translation of the I Ching, it's described as working on what has been spoiled. And it does really seem that something has been spoiled. There is a certain element of decay. So what is this decay? Just consider it. What is not right, and what has caused the problem? Well, what has caused the problem is neglect in the past. Something has not been treated properly in the past. May not be your fault. Maybe someone in the past, maybe a relative or whatever, has been looking after something, but looking after it incorrectly or ignoring it. And anyway, now there's a problem. And perhaps you shouldn't be thinking too much about blame. You should be thinking, well, okay, we've got a problem. And it's a problem which you may feel that you just simply do not have the strength to sort out. But I wouldn't be too negative about it. Things aren't perfect. You may feel that you can't fix things, but perhaps what you have to do is allow this issue, neglect in the past, to work its way through, to analyze it, and then to look at the hexagram that comes after it. So, because we've got a moving line, the second hexagram is the cauldron. It's a very powerful hexagram, the cauldron. The symbol for the cauldron is the top three lines represent fire, and the bottom three lines represent, they represent wind. And so you have the idea of a fire heating something up, and it's heating up this sacrificial cauldron. It's not just any cauldron. It's not just some random pressure cooker or whatever. It's a sacrificial cauldron. And sacrifice, yes. What that means is taking something and putting it into the cauldron. and it burns up. I'm not talking about anything literally, but in order to deal with the illness, to deal with the problem that's come about from the past through past neglect, it does seem that you have to give something up. What is it? There's something you're hanging on to. It's not useful anymore. You may be very attached to it. Maybe you've been hanging on to it for a long time. Maybe it's this problem from the past in itself that you're so attached to, you don't want to give it up. Sometimes we like to collect problems. We become attached to the very things that are holding us up. And so we've got to find what it is and be ready to give it up. And the cauldron is also about making the most of our resources. And I kind of associate the cauldron with the tarot card Temperance. You're thinking about the Crowley tarot pack. You have this cauldron, and you have Temperance putting all this stuff into the cauldron. That's like all our abilities and our talents and what we have, and we have to put it all together and put it in the right place. And by bringing all our resources together, we come up with an answer, and we come up with a solution. And so in this cauldron, in this sacrificial cauldron, we find the solution. We find the cure. We can take this problem, has its roots in the past, we can address it, throw stuff into the cauldron, including the stuff we no longer need, including the stuff that's holding us back, and in this way we can create a solution, and we can cure ourselves. But I must emphasize, when I'm talking about illness, I'm almost certainly not talking about a physical or even a psychological illness. It's symbolic for something that is not working, is decayed, that's been neglected in the past. So I just hope you get that. Okay, so that's the I Ching, and now I want to go back to the astrology and consider the matter of Pluto. So when I talk about Pluto and Pluto in Aquarius, I'm probably going to be quite sort of chaotic and probably repetitive as well. I have talked about Pluto before. I've made a video about Pluto. So some of the things I say, if you've watched me talk about Pluto before, you might feel that I'm perhaps repeating myself. So if so, my apologies. So, Pluto's going into Aquarius. It should be understood that, in a way, this movement into Aquarius is temporary. Yes, January 20th, 21st, Pluto goes into Aquarius. But on September the 2nd, the moon leaves Aquarius and it goes back into Capricorn. And it stays in Capricorn until November the 19th. So you could argue that this big movement that we're all so excited about, Pluto moving from Capricorn into Aquarius, is only temporary, and it's not really until November that we see the big change, when Pluto goes into Aquarius and then stays in Aquarius. So do bear that in mind. Now there is a year that kind of follows the pattern of 2024. That year is 1778. So in 1778, Pluto went into Aquarius on January the 27th. It stayed in Aquarius until August the 20th. It left Aquarius, moved back into Capricorn, and then did not go into did not go into Aquarius until December the 2nd. So I looked on sort of Wikipedia and tried to find out what's going on in 1778. Well, okay, I'm in America. Americans are quite nostalgic about the American Revolution. And so, yeah, 1778 was in the middle of a revolutionary wars that the US was fighting with, fighting again, fighting against Britain with. And what about 1778? Now, I'm not a big expert on the American Civil Wars, but from what I can gather, in 1778, yeah, there were battles. It was sort of to and fro, but it was not conclusive. There was this sort of ongoing battle, but it wasn't the end of the matter. So, in terms of Pluto and Aquarius and struggle, we just shouldn't forget that Pluto does go back into Capricorn. So, if you've got a sort of a revolutionary situation, wherever it is in the world, maybe it's just not going to be resolved. This time round, it's not going to be resolved because Pluto leaves Aquarius, goes back into Capricorn. So we might have a struggle which in itself is really important, but which is not resolved. If we follow the 1778 pattern. Now, continuing on the theme of revolution, Pluto has been in Capricorn. It is going into Aquarius. Now, some things don't change. Pluto is covering two signs that are both ruled by Saturn. Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. So you could say, what's going to happen? Nothing's going to happen, maybe. But there is a big difference between Capricorn and Aquarius. So the difference is that Capricorn obviously is an earth sign. Aquarius is an air sign. Capricorn is a negative feminine sign. Aquarius is a positive masculine sign. So we are seeing different manifestations of Saturn. Saturn in Capricorn is just trying to hold the status quo. It's just trying to keep the status quo together. Saturn in Aquarius is moving beyond the status quo. This is the government that doesn't just want to hold things together. It wants to go further. It wants to control actively, positively, using all the resources at its disposal, including technology. And so that is an aspect of Pluto in Aquarius. Now, going back to the end of the 18th century, I think there are some useful lessons there. So the American Revolutions, sort of as the American Revolution started, July the 4th, 1776, Pluto was in late Capricorn, but fairly soon after it moved into Aquarius. So you could say that Pluto in Aquarius has a certain connection with the American Revolution. It also has a connection with the French Revolution, because if you remember, the French helped the revolutionaries. In fact, if the French hadn't have helped the American revolutionaries, they probably would have lost the war, and the US would probably now be more like Canada, maybe. So French help was really important, but the French kind of bankrupted themselves. It cost them a huge amount of money to support the American revolutionaries, and that, according to some views, is one of the reasons why there was the French Revolution. And so the French Revolution, also happened when Pluto was in Aquarius. And I think this gives us an idea of what Pluto in Aquarius is actually about. Pluto, you know, from a sort of naive perspective, one can say, oh, well, Pluto in Aquarius is about freedom, the rights of man, people, people being able to do what they want. Well, not really. If you think about it, the American Revolution was just creating a new system. It was just creating a brand new form of government. Okay, the government was, but it was a form of government in the American Revolution that was kind of very theoretical. The founding fathers had sat down in a very sort of Aquarian way and said, this is the kind of government we're going to have, and we're going to create this constitution, and we're going to create checks and balances, and we're going to draw a lot from ancient Rome, and this is what we're going to do, and it's a brand new form of government. That is very Aquarian. And did it create freedom? Well, I've heard it said that under the British, there was less of a tax burden amongst the colonists than there was once the United States was an independent power. It was about there was a high level of control, and an example of that, I think, under George Washington, there was something called, I think it was called the Whiskey Rebellion. I think central government wanted to tax whiskey. There were some people that didn't like it, and there was actually a whole rebellion about it. I think people were killed. And that's a very Pluto in Aquarius thing. Government control. You've got rid of the British, but you've got a new government, and a government that has a new system, that's very proud of its brand new system and its checks and balances and its constitution. Then you go to France, 1789, storming of the Bastille, and there you've got real Pluto in Aquarius. The revolutionaries in 1789, they created a completely new system. They wanted to change the months. They wanted to change what do they want to change? The week? I think ideally they were going to have a 10-day week. All the months were changed, and it really was year zero. They wanted to create their own. Robespierre, I think, had this idea of creating a new god, the supreme being. I think there was a festival of the supreme being. So everything was under state control, and the state had a new idea, a new way of being, new way of running the government, and it was brutal. And it sort of culminated, obviously, in a reign of terror when there were loads of sort of guillotinings and that kind of thing. But that was the French Revolution, and that is a manifestation of Pluto in Aquarius. And it tells us something about the way the sign Aquarius works. It's not nice in many respects. I mean, really, the sign Aquarius is about government control. It's totalitarian. It's about using technology to try to get one's way. Still, there is a rebellious spirit. People are fighting back, but it's really difficult once the state wants to get its way. I mean, I'm not quite sure when the Whiskey Rebellion happened, whether Pluto had changed signs by the time when it happened, but those involved with the Pluto in the Whiskey Rebellion against George Washington's government were stomped on. So that is something to bear in mind when we think about what Pluto in Aquarius is really about. And I actually want to go back even further to look at the previous iteration of Pluto in Aquarius. if you take approximately 248 years before Pluto, before Pluto went into Aquarius, and that gives us a slightly different view. So Pluto was in Aquarius when Henry VIII of England was on the throne, and in a way, in England under Henry VIII, you did again have a brand new system, because Henry VIII split with the Church of Rome, with the Catholic Church, while Pluto was in Aquarius. And here, for example, this is the chart here. I think, although it says February the 4th, the actual date I think was January the 25th. January the 25th, 1533 was when Henry VIII married Anne Boleyn. The Catholic Church said he couldn't divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, but he did it anyway, and he split with the Catholic Church. That is Pluto in Aquarius. Rulers wanting control. Rulers are wanting to break free from anything holding them back. So, in terms of the United States, you had perhaps an elite, a colonial elite, wanting to be in control. Maybe you could argue that in certain aspects it was a slave-owning elite that wanted control, so they got rid of the British. But did that change anything in terms of power? No, it didn't change anything. There were still structures of power that existed. And likewise, Henry VIII, with Pluto moving into Aquarius, he was thinking he wanted to be in control. I mean, I suppose he also wanted to take the money tied up in the monasteries. He had expenses. Getting rid of the monasteries was a good way of dealing with that, the dissolution of the monasteries. But I think what he did, breaking with the Catholic Church, if you imagine what it would have been like if you had been in England in 1532, 1533, it must have felt completely dramatic, like year zero. The king has broken from the Catholic Church. That is an extraordinary thing. And I think his marriage, I think we have a new moon. You can see at his, I think I got this chart right. He was married on January the 25th. Don't worry about February the 4th. I got the chart to line up with the ephemerises from astro.com, which are in Julian calendar. You can see there was a new moon in Aquarius, and then there's Pluto just edging into Aquarius. So for Britain, for England in 1533, Pluto going into Aquarius was incredibly dramatic, and it was a year zero experience, which brought about in the end a lot of struggle. The Catholic Church did come back for a brief time, but then when Henry VIII died and Mary became queen, then his son Edward became king. Edward died, then Mary became queen, and she was a Catholic, and so she tried to bring Catholicism back. Then she died, and then Britain really did become a Protestant country. But that is one aspect of Pluto and Aquarius, and I think Henry VIII does demonstrate that. And maybe we need to see that as being, in terms of a modern world, we've got rulers wanting control. They want to be in control of their own world, of their own country. And it's all about power. It's not that they're doing it necessarily for the benefits of other people. They want control. Maybe we will start to see this happen in the European Union, Okay, we've already had Brexit. I mean, who knows what Britain's going to do? There may be other countries in the European Union. I don't know. We look at Hungary, Viktor Orban, or okay, Poland is a mess at the moment, but who knows what, the EU seems to have done a good job kind of taking over Poland effectively, but for the moment. But in any situation where rulers, people in authority, don't have enough control, they're going to use the opportunity to create a brand new system to give themselves more control, and that is certainly an aspect of Pluto in Aquarius. Now, looking at the sign Aquarius in isolation, and let's taking the Pluto element out of it. One of the most notorious Aquarian organizations was Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany was born on January the 30th, 1933, when Hitler came to power. I've got 11:07 a.m. here, but I don't know whether that's the exact time that Hitler was made Chancellor. But you can see Sun in Aquarius, Saturn at 7, Sun at 10 Aquarius, Saturn at 7 Aquarius, Mercury at 4 Aquarius. So Nazi Germany really was an Aquarian organization. It was very modern, using technology to control, and you have the intelligence apparatus, the Gestapo having files on everyone, but there is control. This is Aquarian control, not Capricorn control. This is the real nature of Aquarius. This is a new regime. The old rules are gone. This is the modern. This is the new, and the modern is absolutely horrible. And that is a problem with Aquarius. You can see, Leni Riefenstahl, the Nazi filmmaker, Triumph of the Will. That's Aquarius. It really is. So what else was going on in early 1933? There was actually another Aquarian organization. Well, it's not an Aquarian organization, but there was an Aquarius who came to power in early 1933. Just after Hitler came to power, with Saturn in Aquarius, there was an Aquarian who came to power, and so we have here on March the 4th, 1933, just over a month after Hitler came to power, Franklin D. Roosevelt came to power. Now, okay, you could say, well, yeah, but the sun's not in Aquarius anymore, but we've still got Saturn in Aquarius, and we shouldn't forget that Franklin D. Roosevelt was an Aquarius, born on January the 30th. In fact, he was born January the 30th, 1882, so he was born for 33 and 12. He was born exactly 45 years before Hitler came to power. And you could argue that the Roosevelt regime, okay, it's not. I'm not using this example to condemn it, but there are certain similarities between Roosevelt's regime and Hitler's regime, in the sense they both have the belief that the state can make things better. State intervention can make things better for ordinary people. I mean, I think that's a big theme of both governments. You've got the New Deal, and the state really interfering in people's lives. For example, in 1934, you had the confiscation of gold, where it was illegal to hold anything but small amounts of gold. So every American had to give up their gold. And they had to take whatever the government, whatever the government would offer for it. So you had to take, I forget what it was it $25 an ounce, $35 an ounce? So you had to give up your gold unless you had a small amounts. But that is very Aquarian, giving up your gold. Particularly, Aquarius is the opposite sign to Leo. Leo is ruler of Leo is the sun, and that's a connection of gold. But here's Saturn in Aquarius, run by this Aquarian FDR. He wants to take your gold, and yeah, his New Deal, getting involved with sorting a country out. You don't, that's Aquarius. But the idea that governments can make things better, that is a very Aquarian theme. Now, this movement of Pluto into Aquarius, we have to see it against the backdrop of the last Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions in astrology are really very important. Jupiter and Saturn are the great chronocrators, the rulers of time. And so every time there's a conjunction, you get a reset, and we get the theme for the next 20 years. And so get a conjunction, things potentially completely change. So there was a conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn on December the 21st, 2020. So that would have been in the middle of the COVID epidemic. And just after the solstice, you can see Sun at 0 degrees 21 Capricorn. Now, this conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn was in the first degree of Aquarius, right at the beginning of Aquarius. Now, this is a conjunction set for London, by the way, set for Westminster, and set for Westminster, we've got Jupiter-Saturn exactly on the descendant. So this conjunction actually has a big impact on the UK, on the 7th house cusp. I don't know. I feel, by the way, that this conjunction 2020 is like the end for the UK. I don't say the end, but it's like, I think the UK has had all these fantasies, these imperial fantasies, still hasn't quite got over the loss of empire, and it's kind of maybe its last hurrah. The sun is perhaps, the Jupiter and Saturn is finally setting on Britain and its influence, we perhaps, perhaps we're seeing this with with this final craziness of Britain being absolutely obsessed with the Ukraine war. You can see Britain is desperate now. Britain has put so much capital and its reputation into keeping this war going that they'll do anything. And I'm thinking that when this war ends, Britain's reputation is going to be in tatters, and I think it will be a much smaller nation, I think, somehow. And I don't think things are going to be helped by the fact Jupiter-Saturn may also hint about the next election with the government almost certain to lose. So that may be something about what the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius is. But that's not really the main point. This conjunction, so Aquarius, what does Aquarius mean? So a few years ago on my blog, I mean, I don't think anyone reads my blog, but I was speculating on what this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction would mean. So this was in 2020, and or was it 2021? 2020, yeah. And I concluded that this conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn was strongly connected with Russia. Reason being, like from a Ptolemaic point of view, so Ptolemy 2,000 years ago, he talked about the signs of the zodiac and which parts of the world they ruled. And Aquarius is connected, if you try to look at Ptolemy's descriptions, it really is connected, you could argue, is connected with Russia, Belarus, Ukraine. It's all about that part of the world. That's what this conjunction is about. And I took the view, when I didn't know about the Ukraine war, that really this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction was going to be the beginning of Russia's decade. Even Russia's 20 years. At the very least, I think, when I think about it now, this is a time when Russia is in its ascendancy. We've all written Russia off, but I was thinking in 2020, 2021, that this is good for Russia. This is a time when Russia is going to move forward. And people will look back at it as the beginning of Russia's ascent in terms of global influence and power. So that was my view. And I think that there was some support for that by considering the previous Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius. Sorry, not the previous Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, but with these Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions, you have, they tend to be in particular signs. So we had a run of Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions in Earth signs, but we started to move into air in 1980. 1980, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction was in Libra. In 2000, it was in Taurus. Now it's really firmly in Aquarius. The run of air Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions has started. So the last time we had a run like this with that first Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius was not that one. There we go. March. I think it says March the 12th. I think it was actually March the 4th. This are calendars, but this is. Don't get too hung up on the date there. The date is correct, but sorry, the date is not correct, but the chart is correct. March 1226. So March 1226. What was actually going on? Now I can't be totally precise on this, but Genghis Khan died, I believe, the following year in 1227. So what was going on at 1226, roughly, approximately at this time, is that the Mongols were starting to get into Russia. They'd already, I think, previous to this had started to get involved in Russia, but 1226 represented the big change where the Mongols really started to make their presence felt, and this was a long-term trend. It wasn't just something that happened instantly 1226, but it was like the threat from the east. The East in general is about the air signs. And I believe it in 1240, which would have been about 14 years after the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, we had the fall of Kiev. which was on December the 6th, 1240, which was when the Mongols took Kiev. So this is what was going on in the early 13th century. And I think we're going to start to see echoes of this. And, we perhaps from a West, sort of West European perspective, okay, I know I'm in America, but we might see the threat from the East. And I suppose that is perhaps the threat from Russia. But I don't actually see Russia as a threat. But it's more like, with sort of BRICS and China, and perhaps this is really what the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is all about. The fact that it is the decline of the West, really accelerating the ascendancy of Russia, but it's the beginning of something much bigger. The West is over, and I think that's what the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is telling us, and that links with Pluto, with Pluto going into Aquarius, because Pluto, that's the conjunction December the 21st, 2020. So what's happening is that Pluto is going over the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction on almost exactly on December the 21st, 2020. It's also, by the way, going over Britain's descendant. Sorry, I won't say Britain's descendant. When you set the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction on December the 21st, 2020 for London, or Westminster, the descendant is 040 Aquarius. Pluto is going to go over that descendant. It's also going to go over Jupiter-Saturn. And so Pluto, this Pluto moving into Aquarius, I think is going to be absolutely catastrophic for the UK. It could be very difficult for France as well, maybe, but I think particularly for the UK. So because I think because Russia's going to win this war in Ukraine on many different levels. I mean, okay, we know that already without astrology, but I think that that's really what Pluto and Aquarius is about at one level. It's about Russia winning, Russia's real ascendancy as a superpower, as being an influential superpower. I think that's one theme of Pluto going into Aquarius, particularly as it links with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in the first degree of Aquarius. I mean, we're going to see other stuff going on. We're going to see, with Pluto in Aquarius, we're going to see governments really trying to control us like never before, actively trying to control us. And I suppose following what people are doing. I mean, I suppose all these things about central bank digital currencies, being able to monitor people's expenditure. We're already starting to see governments behaving in an over-the-top way. Considering banning parties if they don't like what they're doing. I'm going to say something somewhat controversial here. I think that maybe a manifestation of Pluto in Aquarius is actually the attempts in the US to try to stop Trump being on the ballot paper. That seems to be, someone trying to kind of interfere with the electoral process. I think you're perhaps all I think we're already seeing this. I've heard we're seeing this in some people in Germany are actually talking about having restrictions on that far right party, what's it, the AFD. Uh, that's maybe part of the Pluto and Aquarius aspect. Now, I'm not saying that's not. I'm not making a political point here. I'm just. I'm not. I must make that clear. But I think we're starting to see it as Western as the West declines, or at least sort of a liberal democracy starts to sort of come under threat. There's going to be this backlash. Governments really trying to do whatever they can to stay in control and to stop opponents from standing against them. I think that is going to be very much part of what Pluto in Aquarius is going to be like, and it's about interference. You saw with interference, we talked about central bank digital currencies. We saw in America in 1934 confiscating people's gold. That's standard Aquarian behavior. But Pluto in Aquarius is more dramatic than that, especially when you consider the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius in 2020. Now, Aquarius is also about revolution, and I think that there's going to be there's going to be a huge struggle as well. We're going to see massive toing and froing. When Pluto went into Aquarius and Henry VIII broke from the Catholic Church, it wasn't the end of the matter. There was attempts to restore ties with the Catholic Church later she succeeded for a time until she died under Mary I. But you're going to get those kind of swings. They're going to be all over the place while Pluto is in Aquarius, and so I think that that is what it's about. But we just shouldn't forget that Pluto does leave Aquarius this year. It's not until November the 19th that Pluto moves into Aquarius and stays in Aquarius. Okay, those are some thoughts about Pluto in Aquarius. Sorry, it's all a bit chaotic, but I kind of wanted to get those off my chest. So just look at what's going on politically. Remember that Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. That's just the important thing to remember. It is ruled by Saturn. It is a sign that is about year 0. It's about control. It is very often about totalitarianism, and it can be about people having ideals, but those ideals getting out of control and becoming actually part of a totalitarian system. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say. I'm sorry that I went on for so long. I hope you found that of some interest. If you enjoyed the video, I'd be grateful if you liked it. If you're not subscribed, yes, feel free to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. Thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.